An executive is in the car with his family, late for an important meeting, when they're suddenly startled by a small dog jumping at the window, desperately trying to get their attention. The executive, who hates animals, is about to ignore the puppy. However, his son, sensing something is wrong given the dog's desperation, begs to check it out. Reluctant and certain it would be a waste of time, the executive gives in. But what he discovers next leaves him in shock, changing his life forever. The bustling streets of New York City pulse with the frenetic energy of a typical Monday morning. Towering skyscrapers cast long shadows across the congested avenues, where a sea of yellow taxis weaves through the gridlock. Amidst this urban chaos, a sleek silver SUV inches forward, its occupants visibly tense. Behind the wheel sits John Harrison, a distinguished man in his mid-40s, his salt and pepper hair neatly combed, and his crisp suit a stark contrast to the worry lines etched on his face. His fingers drum an impatient rhythm on the steering wheel as he glances anxiously at his Rolex. In the passenger seat, his wife Sarah, an elegant woman with kind eyes, places a reassuring hand on his arm, though her own expression betrays concern. In the back seat, their 10-year-old son Tommy fidgets with his tablet, occasionally looking up to catch his father's frustrated sighs in the rearview mirror. The air inside the vehicle is thick with unspoken tension, a stark juxtaposition to the vibrant city life unfolding beyond the tinted windows. As they approach a crosswalk, the stoplight flashes red, and John's grip tightens on the wheel. Pedestrians flood the street, suited professionals clutching coffee cups, students with oversized backpacks, and the occasional jogger weaving through the crowd. The family's SUV comes to a complete stop, joining the chorus of idling engines and impatient horns. Suddenly, a flash of white and brown fur darts between the forest of legs crossing the street. A small, determined Jack Russell Terrier emerges from the throng, his bright eyes fixed intently on the Harrison's vehicle. As the light turns green and the SUV begins to move, the dog's ears perk up and he springs into action, setting in motion a chain of events that will change the Harrisons' lives forever. John Harrison, 45, is the epitome of a New York high-powered executive. His piercing blue eyes, usually focused on the next big deal, now dart anxiously between the road and his watch. John's life has always been a carefully orchestrated symphony of meetings, deadlines, and career milestones. Today, that symphony is on the verge of discord. Sarah Harrison, 43, is the calm in John's storm. A part-time art therapist, she possesses a warmth that softens her husband's edges. Her auburn hair falls in gentle waves, framing a face that shows both concern for John's stress and a deep, abiding patience. As she places a hand on John's arm, her touch speaks volumes of their 15-year partnership. Tommy Harrison, their 10-year-old son, is a bundle of curiosity and energy barely contained in the back seat. His mop of unruly brown hair and freckled cheeks give him an air of perpetual mischief. But behind his playful exterior lies a sensitive soul, acutely aware of the tension between his parents. Tommy's fingers fly over his tablet, but his eyes keep drifting to the world outside, yearning for adventure. Max, the Jack Russell Terrier, is a compact powerhouse of determination. His white and tan coat is slightly ruffled, hinting at a recent urgency in his journey. Bright, intelligent eyes scan the street with purpose, and his small body quivers with a mix of anxiety and resolve. Though he appears as just another stray to passers-by, Max carries himself with the air of a dog on a mission. Elizabeth Beth Thompson, 72, is not present in the initial scene, but plays a crucial role in the unfolding story. A retired nurse with a lifetime of compassion etched into the lines of her face, Beth lives alone in a modest brownstone, not far from where the Harrisons are stuck in traffic. Her silver hair is always neatly pinned back, and her warm brown eyes sparkle with a vitality that belies her age. Beth has been managing her diabetes for years, a daily routine of monitoring and medication that has become second nature to her. The city of New York itself emerges as a character in this narrative. Its streets teem with life, a melting pot of cultures, dreams, and daily dramas. From the iconic skyline to the hidden alleyways, the city provides a backdrop of constant motion and unexpected connections. The juxtaposition of towering ambition and street-level humanity creates a unique ecosystem where a small dog's determination can intersect with a family's routine and a stranger's life-threatening emergency. The Animal Welfare Society of New York, though not a person, will become a significant presence in the story. This organization, housed in a renovated warehouse in Brooklyn, stands as a beacon of hope for countless animals. Its dedicated staff and volunteers work tirelessly, their efforts a testament to the city's capacity for compassion amidst its renowned hustle and bustle. As these characters' paths converge, the stage is set for a series of events that will challenge perceptions, forge unexpected bonds, and ultimately reveal the extraordinary impact of empathy and kindness in a world that often seems too busy to care. As the traffic light flickers to green, John eases the SUV forward, his mind already racing through the day's packed schedule. Suddenly, a furious barking erupts beside the car. Max, the determined Jack Russell Terrier, throws himself against the vehicle's door, his paws scrabbling frantically on the gleaming paint. Tommy presses his face against the window, his eyes wide with concern. "Dad, stop! That dog needs help." "Please, Dad," Tommy pleads, his voice cracking with emotion. "Something's wrong. We have to help him." John reluctantly pulls the SUV to the curb, his jaw clenched with frustration. As he steps out, the cacophony of the city engulfs him, honking horns, distant sirens, the persistent barking of Max. For a moment, John stands frozen, the world of boardrooms and business deals suddenly feeling very far away. Sarah joins him on the sidewalk, her gentle presence a stark contrast to John's rigid posture. She kneels down, extending a hand towards Max. "It's okay, little one," she coos, her voice barely audible above the city's din. Max, however, keeps his distance, his eyes darting between the Harrisons and the direction from which he came. Tommy scrambles out of the car, his earlier sullenness replaced by excitement. "Dad, I think he wants us to follow him," he exclaims, his young face alight with the thrill of potential adventure. John checks his watch again, mental calculations racing through his mind. "We don't have time for this," he mutters, more to himself than anyone else. But as he looks at his son's hopeful expression and his wife's encouraging nod, something shifts within him. A long-buried memory surfaces, a childhood dog, loyal and loving, always there when he needed comfort. John pushes the thought away, but not before it leaves a crack in his usually impenetrable professional facade. Max, sensing the moment of indecision, lets out a series of sharp, insistent barks. He takes a few steps away, then turns back, clearly wanting them to follow. The urgency in the dog's behavior is palpable, tugging at even John's reluctant heartstrings. John looks at his wife, seeing in her eyes a mixture of concern and a gentle challenge. He realizes that this moment is about more than just a stray dog. It's about the kind of man, husband, and father he wants to be. As the family begins to follow Max, the dynamics between them start to shift subtly. Tommy, usually absorbed in his digital world, is now fully engaged with his surroundings. He trots alongside Max, his eyes shining with excitement. "Look, Dad," he calls out, pointing at the dog's determined gait. "He really knows where he's going." Sarah walks close to John, her arm linked with his. She can feel the tension in his muscles, the internal struggle between his ingrained need to stick to schedule and this unexpected detour. "You're doing the right thing," she murmurs, giving his arm a gentle squeeze. John's face is a canvas of conflicting emotions. As they turn down a narrow side street, leaving the main thoroughfare behind, he feels a strange mix of anxiety and something else. A feeling he hasn't experienced in years, the thrill of the unknown. Suddenly, Max darts down an alleyway between two buildings. The Harrisons hesitate at the entrance, the dim passage a stark contrast to the sunny street they've left behind. In that moment, the trivial concerns of missed meetings and delayed schedules evaporate. John straightens, his years of corporate leadership kicking in. "Sarah, call 911, he says firmly. "Tommy, stay close to your mother." As John ventures deeper into the alley, the bustling sounds of New York fade, replaced by an eerie quiet, broken only by Max's insistent barking. The narrow passage is dim, lined with overflowing dumpsters and discarded cardboard boxes. John's polished Oxfords crunch on scattered gravel, each step taking him further from his comfort zone. A faint groan answers him, spurring him forward. Rounding a corner, John comes face to face with the source of Max's distress. There, crumpled against a wall, lies Beth Thompson. Her silver hair is disheveled, her normally neat appearance in disarray. Her eyes are half closed, her breathing labored. Max whines, nudging Beth's hand with his nose. John notices a medical alert bracelet on her wrist. "Diabetes," he reads aloud, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "She needs help now," John says, his mind racing. "Sarah, in my briefcase, there's a candy bar. Bring it here, quick." John looks at his son, realizing that his actions in this moment will shape Tommy's understanding of crisis and compassion. "We're going to do everything we can to help her, son," he says, projecting a confidence he doesn't entirely feel. The minutes crawl by, feeling like hours. The wail of distant sirens grows louder, but John knows that every second counts. He continues administering small amounts of sugar, all while monitoring Beth's breathing and pulse. As Beth's eyelids begin to flutter, John faces his next challenge. The alley is too narrow for an ambulance to enter. They'll need to move Beth to the street, but any wrong movement could worsen her condition. The sound of sirens grows louder, but the paramedics' arrival presents a new set of challenges. John realizes they need to clear a path and guide the emergency responders to their location quickly. Tommy nods solemnly, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I can do it, Dad," he says, his young voice filled with determination. Meanwhile, Beth's condition remains precarious. Her eyes open briefly, unfocused and confused. Tommy, showing maturity beyond his years, speaks to her in soothing tones, just as he's seen his mother do with scared animals at the shelter where she volunteers. The paramedics arrive, their efficient movements a blur of activity. As they assess Beth's condition and prepare her for transport, John faces a moral dilemma. Beth is alone, vulnerable, and Max is clearly devoted to her. The thought of leaving the dog behind tugs at John's newly awakened sense of compassion. In that moment, John makes a split-second decision. "The dog comes with us," he says firmly, surprising even himself with his resolve. As Beth is carefully maneuvered onto the stretcher, a new challenge emerges. Her eyes flutter open, and in a moment of lucidity, she weakly grasps for Max, murmuring, "My pills, home." With the ambulance waiting and Beth's condition still unstable, John faces a critical decision. Does he go with Beth to the hospital, send his family home and try to locate Beth's house himself, or entrust the task to someone else? In the face of this complex situation, John's decision-making skills snap into focus. "Sarah," he calls, "I need you to go with Beth in the ambulance. You have medical knowledge from your volunteer work, and Beth needs a familiar face." Turning to Tommy, John kneels to meet his son's eyes. "Tommy, you've been incredibly brave. I need you to keep being brave. We're going to help Max find Beth's home and get her medication." As the paramedics load Beth into the ambulance, John approaches them. "My wife will accompany you. I'll bring Beth's medication to the hospital as soon as we locate it." With a quick kiss to Sarah, John watches as the ambulance speeds away, sirens blaring. He takes a deep breath, realizing that his day has veered wildly off course, yet feeling more alive than he has in years. As they navigate the neighborhood's winding streets, John finds himself marveling at the turn of events. Just an hour ago, his biggest concern was a business meeting. Now, he's on a potential life-saving mission, led by a dog he would have ignored this morning. John nods, a newfound respect for the animal world blooming within him. I think you're right, son. There's a lot more going on in their minds than we give them credit for. As they follow Max through the streets of New York, John's mind races. He's acutely aware of the ticking clock, knowing that every minute counts for Beth's treatment. His fingers twitch, instinctively reaching for the phone he'd normally be glued to. Instead, he finds himself reaching out to hold Tommy's hand, grounding himself in the present moment. Max leads them with unwavering determination, his small body navigating the busy sidewalks with ease. People cast curious glances at the unlikely trio, a man in a rumpled business suit, a wide-eyed boy, and a purposeful little dog. Tommy pipes up, "Dad, look! There's a hider key under that flower pot." Inside, the house is neat but lived in, filled with photos and mementos of a life well lived. John's eyes scan quickly, looking for anything that might indicate where Beth keeps her medication. Relief washes over John. He grabs both items, knowing they'll be crucial for the hospital staff. As they prepare to leave, John's gaze falls on a framed photo of Beth, smiling widely, her arms around a familiar-looking Jack Russell Terrier. As they lock up and head towards the hospital, John feels a profound shift within himself. He stepped far outside his comfort zone today, making rapid decisions that have nothing to do with profit margins or corporate strategies. Yet, he feels more fulfilled than he has in years. John, Tommy, and Max burst through the hospital's emergency room doors. The stark, fluorescent lights, a jarring contrast to the warm afternoon sun outside. The antiseptic smell and hushed urgency of the ER assault. John senses as he approaches the nurse's station, Beth's medication clutched tightly in his hand. The nurse eyes John skeptically, then glances at Tommy and Max. "Sir, I'm sorry, but we can't allow dogs in the hospital, and I can't disclose patient information to non-family members." As the nurse begins to protest again, a commotion erupts from down the hall. Raised voices and the sound of running feet draw everyone's attention. John's heart sinks as he recognizes Sarah's voice among the chaos. Without hesitation, John scoops up Max and rushes towards Sarah's voice, Tommy close at his heels. They round the corner to find a scene of controlled chaos. Beth is on a hospital bed, surrounded by medical staff working frantically. Her face is pale, her breathing labored. John steps forward, holding out the pill organizer and medical folder. "I have her medication and information here," he says urgently. At the sound of his name, Max whines softly and wriggles in John's grasp. John hesitates, knowing dogs aren't allowed in the hospital, but seeing the positive reaction from Beth, he makes a bold decision. The effect is immediate. As Max snuggles close to Beth, her vitals begin to stabilize. The medical team watches in amazement as the connection between woman and dog seems to bolster Beth's fight for recovery. "Sir," he says sternly to John, "I'm going to have to ask you to remove that dog immediately. It's against hospital policy." John straightens his shoulders, drawing on years of boardroom experience to project authority. "I understand your concern," he addresses the security guard, his voice calm but firm. "But this dog is crucial to the patient's well-being. He found her when she was in distress and led us to her medication. Removing him now could jeopardize her recovery." The security guard falters, clearly torn between protocol and the scene before him. "Sir, I sympathize, but rules are rules. The dog has to go." John seizes the moment. "Let's take this discussion outside," he says to the security guard, gesturing towards the hallway. Once out of earshot of Beth and the medical team, John speaks in a low, urgent tone. The guard's stern expression wavers. John presses on. "I'm not asking you to break the rules permanently. I'm asking for a temporary exception in an extraordinary situation. If anything goes wrong, I'll take full responsibility." The security guard sighs, running a hand over his face. "That's not something we can do instantly. There's paperwork, training." The doctor calls out, "Her vitals are dropping again. We need to calm her down." They rush back into the room. Max, sensing Beth's distress, nuzzles closer to her, Almost immediately, her breathing steadies, and the beeping of the monitors slows to a more regular rhythm. As the crisis subsides, John feels a profound sense of accomplishment. He's navigated a high-stakes situation not with financial acumen or business strategy, but with empathy and quick thinking. He looks at his family, Sarah's proud smile, Tommy's awestruck expression, and realizes that today's events have shifted something fundamental within him. The immediate danger has passed, but John knows this is just the beginning. There will be questions to answer, paperwork to file, and potentially a battle to fight for Max's right to stay with Beth. But as he watches the elderly woman peacefully resting with her loyal companion by her side, John knows it's a fight he's ready to take on. As Beth's condition stabilizes and the immediate crisis subsides, a nurse enters the room with a concerned expression. "Mr. Harrison," she asks, looking at John, "there's someone here to see you. They say it's urgent." "John," Richard says, his voice cold, "would you care to explain why you missed the Globex merger meeting? We lost the deal, millions down the drain. Explain how you threw away years of work, how you've potentially ruined this company's future." Richard's voice rises, drawing attention from others in the waiting room. "And for what? To play hero with some stray dog and a stranger?" John feels a moment of panic. Everything he's worked for, his entire career, seems to be crumbling before his eyes. But as he opens his mouth to defend himself, he catches sight of Tommy through the door of Beth's room. His son is gently petting Max, a look of pure compassion on his face. "You're right, Richard," John says, his voice steady. "I did miss the meeting, and yes, it was to help a stranger and a dog. But let me tell you something. It was the most important thing I've done in years." Richard stares at John, momentarily speechless. Then his face contorts with a mix of anger and disappointment. "John, you're one of our top executives. Are you really throwing it all away for this?" He gestures dismissively towards Beth's room. As if on cue, Sarah emerges from Beth's room. Seeing the tension between John and Richard, she approaches cautiously. "Is everything okay?" she asks, placing a supportive hand on John's arm. Turning back to Richard, John speaks with newfound conviction. "You know, Richard, for years I've measured success by the size of deals and the numbers on spreadsheets, but today I've realized there's so much more to life than that." It's at this moment that the most unexpected twist occurs. A distinguished-looking woman in her late 50s approaches the group, her eyes twinkling with interest. The woman extends her hand, smiling warmly. "I'm Margaret Thornton, CEO of Thornton Philanthropies. Elizabeth is a dear friend and one of our most valued volunteers. When I heard what happened, I came right away." Richard's expression shifts, sensing a potential opportunity. Margaret continues, "In fact, we've been looking for a partner for our new global initiative on corporate social responsibility. Perhaps we should talk." In the days that follow, the hospital room that once buzzed with tension now hums with a sense of newfound purpose and connection. Beth's recovery progresses steadily, with Max never leaving her side. The Jack Russell Terrier has become something of a celebrity in the ward, bringing smiles to patients and staff alike. John, true to his word, throws himself into the process of officially registering Max as a therapy dog. He navigates the paperwork and requirements with the same dedication he once reserved for corporate deals. Sarah's expertise in animal therapy proves invaluable, and together they create a compelling case for Max's continued presence in the hospital. Meanwhile, the meeting with Margaret Thornton evolves into something far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. Impressed by John's actions and his newfound passion for making a difference, she proposes a joint venture between Thornton Philanthropies and John's company. The initiative aims to promote corporate social responsibility and support animal-assisted therapy programs in hospitals across the country. Richard, seeing the potential for both positive PR and lucrative contracts, quickly comes around to the idea. He even begrudgingly admits that John's detour might have led them to an even bigger opportunity than the missed merger. As for Tommy, he blossoms in the wake of this experience. His interest in animals grows, and he starts volunteering at a local animal shelter under Sarah's guidance. The bond between father and son strengthens as they work together on weekends, helping to socialize rescue dogs. Beth's recovery marks a turning point for everyone involved. As she regains her strength, she shares stories of her lifelong dedication to animal welfare and her work with various charities. These tales inspire John to re-evaluate his company's philanthropic efforts, leading to the creation of a new department focused on community outreach and animal welfare programs. The partnership with Thornton Philanthropies flourishes, expanding beyond their initial goals. John finds himself at the forefront of a movement within the corporate world, advocating for the integration of therapy animals in workplace stress reduction programs. His passionate speeches at business conferences, once focused solely on profit margins, now emphasize the importance of compassion and community involvement in the business world. Max's success as a therapy dog paves the way for a broader acceptance of animals in healthcare settings. The hospital, seeing the positive impact on patients, implements a full-scale animal-assisted therapy program, with Beth and Max as its ambassadors. As for John's career, it takes an unexpected but fulfilling turn. While he remains a valuable asset to his company, his role evolves to focus more on corporate social responsibility and philanthropic initiatives. He finds that his new path not only brings professional success, but also a deep sense of personal fulfillment. The Harrisons' home life transforms as well. Family dinners, once rushed affairs punctuated by work calls, become cherished times for sharing and connection. The weekends, previously filled with catching up on office work, are now dedicated to volunteer activities and family outings, often including Beth and Max. The transformation in John's life ripples out, touching everyone around him in profound ways. One sunny afternoon, as he sits in the park watching Tommy play fetch with Max, the full weight of the change hits him. The tears well up in John's eyes as he reflects on the man he used to be, always rushing, always stressed, forever chasing the next big deal. He remembers the countless dinners he missed, the school plays he skipped, all in the name of corporate success. The realization of what he almost lost is overwhelming. John turns to her, his voice thick with emotion. I can't believe how close I came to missing all of this. To missing out on Tommy's childhood, on really being there for you, on making a real difference in the world. As they watch Tommy laughing, his face alight with joy as Max bounds after the ball, John feels a surge of gratitude. He thinks of Beth, now recovered and actively involved in expanding the therapy dog program. He thinks of the lives touched by their new initiatives at work, the families benefiting from their outreach programs. The emotional journey extends beyond John and his immediate family. At the hospital, Beth hosts a small gathering to celebrate her recovery and the success of the new therapy dog program. As John enters the room with Sarah and Tommy, he's struck by the atmosphere of joy and gratitude. Beth, now vibrant and healthy, embraces each of them warmly. "You know," she says, her eyes twinkling, "when I woke up in that hospital bed and saw Max, I thought I was dreaming. But then I saw all of you, strangers who had gone out of their way to help me. It restored my faith in humanity." Nurses and doctors who had been part of Beth's care team share stories of the positive impact Max has had on other patients. One nurse, her voice filled with emotion, recounts how a previously unresponsive patient began to engage after spending time with Max. Tommy, who has been quietly petting Max, looks up at his father with admiration. "Dad," he says, "when I grow up, I want to help people and animals just like you do." In this moment, surrounded by the warmth of new friendships and the tangible results of compassion in action, John understands that he hasn't just changed his life, he's found his true calling. On his desk, a framed photo now sits prominently, a group shot from Beth's celebration with Max front and center. Next to it is a hand-drawn picture from Tommy, showing their family, Beth and Max, all together, with the words, "My Heroes," scrawled in a child's handwriting. John picks up the drawing, a smile playing on his lips. He thinks about the journey that brought him here, from a stressed-out executive chasing the next big deal to a man who found his true calling in compassion and community service. The company's latest report sits on his desk, showcasing record growth not just in profits, but in employee satisfaction and community impact. The therapy dog program has expanded to hospitals nationwide, and their corporate volunteering initiative has become a model for businesses across the country. John turns to face her, his eyes shining with contentment. "I was just thinking, it's amazing how one small act of kindness can change everything, how helping a dog and a stranger could lead to all of this." As they stand there, embracing in the warm glow of the setting sun, John feels a deep sense of peace. He knows that whatever challenges tomorrow may bring, he's exactly where he's meant to be, making a difference, one act of kindness at a time. In the months that follow, John's transformation continues to inspire those around him. The Harrison family story becomes a beacon of hope, showcasing how compassion and courage can reshape lives. Beth fully recovers and becomes a passionate advocate for animal-assisted therapy. Max, now a certified therapy dog, continues to bring joy to hospital patients. The ripple effects of their collective journey touch countless lives across the city and beyond. 5 years later, John stands on a stage, accepting an award for corporate citizenship. As he looks out at the audience, he sees familiar faces: Sarah, Tommy, now a teenager and aspiring veterinarian, Beth, and even Richard. Max, a bit grayer but still spirited, sits proudly at Beth's feet. John realizes that his greatest achievement isn't the award, but the community of compassion they've built together. As our story concludes, we invite you to reflect on the power of kindness in your own life. What small act of compassion might change your world today? Remember, every dog you help, every stranger you assist, could be the start of an extraordinary journey. Open your heart to the unexpected, and you might just discover your true calling.